A Duet, a Percabeth show choir alternate universe fanfiction, part 4. She stared at the text, totally lost on what to do. Hey, do you want to hang out? Honestly, Annabeth had no idea what the answer was. Percy turned out to be a lot more bearable to be around once you finally got to know him. After giving her a ride home that one day and talking about deep things Annabeth would normally never tell a new acquaintance, they became more than just show choir partners and acquaintances. Percy and her began to talk about more than just show. Then Percy and her started to talk before practices and even after, and about nothing at all. They talked about how their school day went and how much homework they had, and also about things they saw on their For You page and Explore tabs. It wasn't long before Annabeth was forced to admit that they were really good friends. At moments, she found herself seeing something out on the streets and taking a picture of it to later show him. At first, Annabeth treated it like a bad habit, enjoying his company, looking forward to their conversations, and admiring his dancing, singing, and performing skills a little bit too much. But now she's come to accept that he's just an important friend to her. But the one caveat is that they've never hung out outside of school or practiced before. She never asked him, and he had ever asked her until now. Honestly, Annabeth just never wanted to cross that border. He had already become fairly close to her in a short amount of time, and maybe that was the reason she kept getting more and more excited whenever she spotted jet black hair. She had been taking all of those little anticipations for him to the minimum by telling herself that it was just the excitement of having a new friend. A new guy friend, no less. Annabeth wasn't dumb, okay? She knew what these little things meant, but she didn't want to accept it. She couldn't accept it, and for reasons that she couldn't even say right now. Because of that, she had all but refused to see him outside of school and show choir, because then she didn't have to think about seeing him on her own terms, and perhaps that would turn her into a lovesick puppy dog, and she hated the idea of being a lovesick puppy dog. But now Annabeth had to make a decision. Say no and have a slightly awkward season partner, or say yes and allow those small little feelings to build up to even more. Neither option was ideal, but at least one was more ideal. It was only 1 year left. She could find a way to fight off dumb crushes or would-be crushes. Soon, Annabeth will be off to college in California, and will forget all about pretty green eyes or that wicked smirk. Sure. The dark blue car pulled up to her house, and Annabeth, who was watching from her window, anxiously sighed. Her nose had been bubbling, because honestly, she was so excited to see him without worrying about going to class in 5 minutes, or being tired from dancing nonstop. She got to see him and talk to him without the school or choir filter, and they could do whatever they wanted. But she was also on edge because exactly what she had been worried about was actually happening. A ring came from her phone, probably him saying that he was there, but she paid it no mind and just headed down the stairs. Her stepmom and her brothers were watching a movie, and even though they saw her leave, Helen didn't even bother to say goodbye. Matthew and Bobby, however, yelled it at her, and even though they were still annoying 12-year-old boys who were now obsessed with driving her car, at least they cared when she left. Hey, Annabeth said, getting into the passenger seat. Thanks for the ride. I could have just driven over, though. I wanted to, he insisted. Besides, I already know where you live, so it was no bother. They both knew it actually was, because he lived farther away, but she didn't want to say anything. And driving with him was begrudgingly nice. Hero complex, Annabeth teased. Who, me? Percy said, innocently batting his eyes at her. A hero. Annabeth snorted and rolled her eyes. Why, thank you. I sure am, he said with a sarcastic huff. Didn't you already know? Annabeth laughed. They called you in to save the show and Luke freaking stole a chair. God, I can't believe that could have been the downfall of the entire show. Annabeth said, rubbing her temples. It still blew her mind that Luke had done it. It was such a stupid move. Percy rolled his eyes at her. Whatever, he brushed off. They had not a single iota of a plan on what to do, but Annabeth spotted an IHOP, and that was the perfect place to go. Even though they weren't outright theater kids anymore, it still had a special place in their hearts. It was already 5:30 p.m., and every other dinner spot would probably have been busy. IHOP, though, was IHOP. So, I take it that today is one of your few days off from swimming, Annabeth said, forcing herself to not look at his face. Looking at him was making her blush like a 12-year-old, and it was annoying, and Annabeth did not have time for that. Yep, Percy laughed. Coach texted, and because of an emergency in the pool, we have the next week or so off, or until we either fix it or find a different pool to practice in. He sighed and stabbed a fork into the stack of pancakes he had ordered. We have got to get a new pool or whatever system that keeps breaking down, because I've only been swimming with them for 4 years, and this is the 6th time it's broken down. You'd think that they actually care because swimming is a sport and all. He gave Annabeth a wire smile. That's irritating, she said dumbly, a little distracted by his shoulders because, wow, this boy is definitely a swimmer. No, it's not annoying at all, he said sarcastically with a smirk. Annabeth rolled her eyes at him. She pointed to his jacket that was once over his body but now hung halfway on the table. Your official sports letterman jacket? She teased. Percy shook his head but grinned. Warm-ups, actually. Ah, because the pool is cold. Only when the PE classes aren't messing everything up and hiking up the temperature. Annabeth raised a brow at him. They always think it's too cold, so they make it really hot, so when we have to practice, it's like swimming in lava, he explained. That makes sense, since you're using a lot of effort. I guess you never really realize how hard you're working the pool because the water just washes off all your sweat, Annabeth said thoughtfully. He nodded in confirmation. One of my friends went swimming with me, and I made him do all of my regular sets because he just didn't get how hard swimming was. And 1, he was dead tired that night and went to sleep at 9 and didn't wake up till 2 in the afternoon. And 2, he was shocked by the stats on his watch. Percy said. Dang, he is living the dream, Annabeth said, laughing easily. Getting to sleep. How many hours is that? Sleeping 12 hours sounds like the best thing in the world right now. Or maybe later when it's calm season, she sighed. Percy and her shared a look of mutual pain for the upcoming weeks. Well, maybe I can take you swimming with me. Maybe you'll be tired enough for those 12 hours. Percy winked awfully. Annabeth snorted. No way. Nice try. You'd never know. I'm a singer. I don't touch on sports. I do both. Well, isn't that your issue? Percy practically choked on his laughter. God, Chase, you're a riot, he said, after drinking half of his water and nearly coughing it back up when she squirked an eyebrow at him. Why don't you talk more? Annabeth shrugged. I don't like people, she said plainly. They're annoying, and I don't want to deal with them unless they present themselves as worth it. A cocky grin appeared on his face. So, I passed the test, he said in a sing-song voice. She looked at him flatly. No, you're still irritating, she said. It's just easier to deal with now. He looked unconvinced. That's exactly what you said. It's worth it to deal with my annoyance. That sentence was a spaz. Whatever. You said it was worth it, and there are no takebacks. They had a staring contest for a few seconds before Annabeth's phone rang. It was a text from Helen. She groaned and checked it, growing more furious because, God, why did Helen always act like this? "What's up?" Percy said, genuinely worried. Annabeth slammed her head on the table top, much to his concern. "Helen," she spat out, "texted me, 'Where are your car keys? The boys want to drive.'" She let out a bitter laugh. "They're at my friend's house because I've already learned my lesson. Only Helen didn't like that. I mean, it doesn't change anything now because she never bothered to find out who my friends are, much less where they live," she said, still proud of her sneakiness. Piper was overjoyed when Annabeth asked her to hide the keys. "Please don't tell me you broke into my house and put your car keys in my room to keep them away from your fury of a stepmother," Percy said dryly, a fork full of pancakes still on its ascent to his mouth. Annabeth couldn't help but burst out laughing. "No, definitely not," she choked out. "Good," he said, clearly very pleased with himself for having made her laugh so hard. "But I get that. They think that just because they're an adult in the household means that they're entitled to anything you own. It doesn't work that way." He sounded far away, and for a moment, all Annabeth wanted to know was why. "Yeah," she trailed off, trying to think of how to start that conversation. But before she could, he stole some of her ice cream with the most impish grin on his face, and it was smug because he knew that he just got away with it. "You are a caveman." "Grrr, fire." "Shut up." Originally, Annabeth thought he was just going to drop her back home and say it was nice and then head back on his merry way. However, this was one of the few times that Annabeth was wrong. He did not just drop her back off at his house. He took her to his house. Annabeth was now standing in the middle of Percy Jackson's kitchen, a second away from meeting his mother. God, dude, things take a turn without you even realizing it. "Sally Jackson. Just call me Sally. Don't worry about formalities," the kind woman said. "It's so wonderful to meet you. I've heard a lot about you." Both her and Percy blushed madly. His mother only chuckled with a twinkling sound. "Don't worry, all from here on. You are one of his best performers," she said, nudging Percy a bit. He muttered something lowly at her. A plate of blue cookies were thrust in front of her face, and for a moment, Annabeth had no idea how to react. "Take one," Percy encouraged. "I promise they're amazing." And as it turned out, they were. Despite the slightly unsettling color, they melted into her mouth and were warm and sweet without being too sharp. It was the perfect cookie. "These are amazing," she said with a smile, and Sally just brushed it off. "She makes the best cookies and cakes. Anything, really," Percy bragged with pride. His mother rolled her eyes and swatted his arm with a kitchen towel, which made Annabeth chuckle. It was quite sweet watching Percy and his mother interact like this. They knew each other well and loved each other a lot. A part of her was rather jealous, wishing that she had even a portion of this relationship with her father, but the other part completely melted. There was something about seeing a boy be open about loving his family and caring about what his mother wanted from him. "Want to watch a movie?" Percy asked, breaking her out of her reverie. She shrugged, and he all but leapt onto the couch and started surfing through the movies on Disney+. "Lion King, Finding Nemo, WALL-E, Mulan," he listed. "I like The Lion King," Annabeth said sheepishly. "Lion King it is." 10 minutes into the movie, Annabeth found for herself under a very soft and fluffy blanket while being not even a half a foot away from Percy. She was internally screaming. She was not, though, because her face was fanning peace as she listened to Percy talk. His head was down, but his heart was bare to her. "I understand that. I really don't think it was your fault," Annabeth said honestly as Percy told her about his past. His past with an awful stepfather, one even worse than Helen. Because At least Helen never laid a hand on her. It feels like it is. It still feels like it is, though, Percy admitted with a weak laugh. But it was his doing. His choice. She boldly put a hand on him, and he leaned closer and sighed. I feel like I made him do it. You were a child. You didn't make anyone do anything. Percy was now impossibly close, and she could see the pain and regret in his eyes. She felt like there was nothing that she could do to get rid of it because he didn't deserve it. Percy could be irritating and boyishly annoying, but he didn't deserve this pain. Don't blame yourself for the failures of an adult. His lips were right there, and if she was just brave enough, Annabeth could push closer and kiss him. It wasn't hard. It just took one more moment and an ounce more of courage, but unfortunately she didn't have either because the sound of a door closing hard sounded across the apartment, and they both jumped like scared cats being doused in water. Percy and Annabeth blinked at each other. The moment was broken, but was not forgotten. So, the final battle? Percy said awkwardly, and they both faced the screen once more, cheeks flaming and disappointed sighs. If only Annabeth had just been a little bit braver.